The foundations of Buddhism. Traditionally, the foundation of Buddhism is referred to as the Triple Gem, Triratna: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Saṃgha. The Buddha, or Awakened One, is the founding master. The Dharma is his teaching, which consists of a doctrine and instructions for its practice, and the Saṃgha refers to the community of his disciples, particularly those who strictly follow his teachings to also attain the experience of awakening, Bodhi. Ancient texts frequently include a recurring homage. Homage to the Buddha. Thus, the Blessed One is worthy, fully awakened by himself, accomplished in vision and conduct, well gone, knower of the world, unsurpassable trainer of those who can be tamed, teacher of humans and divine beings, the Awakened One, the Blessed One. Homage to the Dharma. The reality is well proclaimed by the Blessed One, achievable by oneself, timeless, accessible and visible, to be brought close and experienced by the wise within themselves. Homage to the Saṃgha. The community of the Blessed One's listeners is on a good path, a straight, true, and correct path. This community of the Blessed One's listeners is worthy of offerings of food, sacrifices, gifts, and of being greeted with joined hands. It is the unsurpassable source of benefits in this world. The oldest monuments in India often symbolize homage to the Triple Gem through symbolic forms, either in the form of 3 wheels, each representing one of the gems, or as a kind of trident, typically placed above a fully bloomed lotus flower. The Master, the Buddha. Buddha is an honorary title given to all beings who have attained enlightenment, or Bodhi, through their own efforts. Used in its absolute sense, the Buddha refers to a particular man, Siddhartha Gautama Sakyamuni, whose teachings gave rise to what is known in the West as Buddhism, and in the East as Buddha Dharma, meaning the teaching of the Buddha. A noteworthy detail. French is the only language that has adopted a specific spelling for the term Buddha, the Sanskrit spelling, in the form of Buddha, the French spelling, which most often refers to the historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama Sakyamuni. What is a Buddha? The term Buddha, Awakened One, is a title not reserved solely for the historical Buddha, but is attributed to anyone who, like him, has experienced enlightenment, Bodhi. 2 stages are distinguished in the life of a Buddha, that of a bodhisattva, a being destined for awakening, and that of a Buddha proper, once enlightenment has been attained. The bodhisattva is presented as a model for disciples, and the events of his life represent key stages of the spiritual path. In this sense, one could say that he is almost like other men. Yet a future Buddha is still exceptional. He dedicates himself to seeking the Dharma, the reality as it is, and this quest spans countless lives. These past lives highlight the extraordinary qualities he developed: detachment, universal love, compassion, effort, etc. Who is the historical Buddha? The Buddha, common French spelling, or historical Buddha, lived in the 5th century BCE and is known by the name Siddhartha, first name, Gautama, family name, Sakyamuni, nickname meaning the sage of the Sakya tribe. His life is marked by 4 key episodes: his birth, enlightenment, the first teaching, and finally his complete disappearance. According to tradition, a Buddha does not die but disappears. Based on the longest accepted chronology, he was born in 566 BCE near Kapilavastu, a town located on the current border between India and Nepal, attained enlightenment in 531 BCE at Bodh Gaya, gave his first teaching shortly thereafter in Sarnath near Benares, and experienced his final extinction, parinirva, at the age of 80 in Kushinagar, northern India. Today, scholars suggest he was likely born around 470 BCE and disappeared around 400 BCE, making him a contemporary of the Greek philosopher Socrates. What does his life teach us? Even the oldest documents do not provide scientific evidence of the Buddha's life. They reflect a tradition passed down orally from generation to generation, later fixed in written form around the 2nd century BCE. These texts do not present a continuous biography of the Buddha but rather numerous episodes scattered across 2 main collections, the Vinaya Piyaka, the monastic code, and the Sutra Piyaka, the discourses. From this mosaic, a chronological history was later composed. By asserting that enlightenment was accessible to all, the Buddha invited everyone to follow his example. It was, therefore, important to know the stages of this progression toward enlightenment. However, while his disciples benefited from the Buddha's teachings, he himself attained enlightenment through his own efforts, making him an exceptional being. The story of his life serves as an opportunity to demonstrate his clear superiority over other men, present a symbolic path that all future Buddhas must traverse, and that all disciples should follow in order to emulate him. Thus, the Buddha's humanity is tempered by many supernatural and symbolic elements with pedagogical value. The narrative of his birth primarily emphasizes his superiority, portraying it largely as a symbolic event. The period of his youth illustrates the different stages a future Buddha must pass through before reaching enlightenment, the discovery of human suffering, the commitment to the spiritual path, and study with masters from other traditions. His enlightenment is presented both as a very human experience, accessible to all, and as a supernatural event. The story of his teaching life is filled with anecdotes that showcase the way the disciples' community lived at that time, as well as the different figures the Buddha encountered and with whom he had discussions: kings, masters from other traditions, lay people, etc. His death carries great pedagogical and symbolic value. It serves as a reminder of the essence of his teaching, highlighting both the human and supramundane dimensions of the Buddha, and heralds how his disciples, both monks and lay people, will perpetuate his memory, teaching, and example.
The teaching, the Dharma. The Buddha's teaching, the Dharma, stem from his own experience, originating from his enlightenment, body, en experience of the mind, free from error or illusion. It consists of a doctrinal framework, the dogma, and a set of advice and methods, the practice. The Buddha's first public sermon took place in the Deer Park at Srnth, near Benares. This moment is often symbolized by a wheel of Dharma flanked by two deer, as seen in representation on the roof of temple, such as the one in the Tibetan capital, Lhasa. The Benares sermon, the Buddha's first public teaching. The Doctrine, Dharma, was presented by the Buddha in a teaching known as the Four Noble Truths. This is the core of his first public discourse in Benares, delivered shortly after his enlightenment. The teaching is structured like a medical diagnosis. First truth, the symptom dissatisfaction is inherent in human existence. Second truth, the diagnosis this dissatisfaction arises from ignorance and the ego's desire for possession. Third truth, the therapy there is a state of well-being where, with ignorance abolished, desire no longer arise and therefore does not lead to dissatisfaction. Fourth truth, the remedy to attain this state of well-being, one must follow a path, a disciplined way of life outlined in 8 branches, known as the Noble Eightfold Path, that ends ignorance. While the Buddha's observation may seem pessimistic, dissatisfaction is inherent in human existence, his teaching is optimistic, asserting that everyone can attain a state of well-being in which all dissatisfaction is abolished. To achieve this well-being, Sometim referred to a one's Buddha nature, one must engage in study and practice. The first three truths call for study, which enable us to understand the root cause of dissatisfaction, the nature of the mind and phenomena, explain why our usual experience is mistaken, and affirm the possibility of ending ignorance. These three truths, when expanded upon, explained, and commented upon, form the doctrinal foundation. The fourth truth advocate training through the practical application of methods that can transform ordinary experience into the experience of enlightenment, free from distortion and confusion. This fourth truth lay out the principle that give rise to the various form of practice.
Fundamental concepts. Buddhist doctrine is often presented as a gradual teaching. The Buddha begins by explaining our vision of reality, then offers a new analysis, and finally teaches how to see things as he sees them, as they truly are. The self and the ego. In our ordinary experience, we perceive the world and its phenomena, our body and mind, our feelings and ideas, as though they are interconnected yet fundamentally independent from each other, existing by themselves, each with an inherent essence or self. To explain the diversity of the world, we imagine that each individual or phenomenon is merely a variation of a fundamental self. A horse, a tree, a mountain, anger, love, all are viewed as particular instances of the horse in itself, the tree in itself, the mountain in itself, the anger in itself, or the love in itself. Regarding our own mind and personality, we firmly believe in the existence of an ego, in Sanskrit, Atman, an immaterial and permanent entity that perceives the world, feels emotions, reasons, and conceives ideas through the body. The ego, even more than the body, seems to define our individuality, what is uniquely ours. Impermanence and dissatisfaction. At every moment in life, we can observe that everything in nature is subject to change and death. Everything that comes into existence will eventually disappear, including our own body, like all living beings and material things. The same applies to our emotions and ideas. Just like stars or mountains, love arises at one point and will eventually fade, and our ideas and opinions change over time. This impermanence, in Sanskrit, anitya, causes dissatisfaction, in Sanskrit, dukkha, leading to suffering and unhappiness. Moreover, since we observe that everything dies, everything we believe to have a self, we fear that our ego might also be mortal. However, things are the same as the ego, nothing exists in itself. Everything, including our ego, is born and dies. It is our refusal to accept this reality, the way things truly are, and our clinging to the illusion of a self that causes our dissatisfaction and suffering. Karma and rebirth. In our daily lives, all our actions, karma, are closely tied to this vision of things. Our actions, reactions, desires, and fears are determined by the belief in an ego that exists in itself. We act or react to protect, maintain, and develop this ego, according to our ideas, feelings, or external events. Whenever someone or something seems to challenge this ego in itself, we act to prove to ourselves that we exist, that this ego exists. Each of our actions is born from this intention to affirm its existence, and after the act, we take satisfaction in having proven it. Whenever our ego is in danger of disappearing, we do everything to make it reborn and keep it alive. It is this belief in the ego that fuels the intention behind each of our actions, and it is our attachment to the outcome of these actions that sustains our belief in the ego. Every action thus leads to a new existence, in Sanskrit, purnabhava, a rebirth, of the ego. This is not exactly reincarnation, the return of a soul into a different body, but rather a process of recreating the idea of ourselves, a reformation of a misjudgment that the Buddha views as an illusion. Conditioning and emptiness. For the Buddha, phenomena do not exist in themselves because they are conditioned, they do not exist based on an eternal and independent essence, but rather, they arise depending on circumstances, being produced by a set of conditions. In Buddhist texts, this central idea of the Buddha's teaching is called dependent origination, in Sanskrit, pratisha samutpada. Physical objects are composites. Just as a mountain is an aggregate of stones, soil, and plant or animal residues, our body is composed of cells inherited from our parents, the food we eat, and the air we breathe. Our perceptions are also composites. They result from the combination of external objects, their contact with our body, the impression they leave on our senses, and how our brain interprets them. Similarly, our ideas are composites. They depend on the education we received, our perception of the external world, the experiences we've lived through, and the ideas expressed by others. From this perspective, our ego, the idea we have of ourselves, is just another idea. Furthermore, all the phenomena we experience in our daily lives, whether the external world, our body, or our mind, do not exist independently of the experience we have of them. Not only do they appear as a result of multiple and ever-changing conditions, but they only have a relative existence based on our experience of them. In reality, the reality as it is, if there is any absolute existence of phenomena, it is characterized by the emptiness, in Sanskrit, sunyata, of all phenomena. All phenomena are empty because they do not exist by themselves nor independently of our experience of them. This emptiness is what one can experience through the mental training practices recommended by the Buddha. Practice. Practice encompasses various trainings and spiritual exercises that the Buddha's disciples undertake to personally verify the truth and effectiveness of the teachings. This experience allows them to progress along the spiritual path and ultimately reach its goal, enlightenment and liberation. What does practice involve? Practice is defined as a set of means made available to disciples to facilitate and enable direct, personal experience of reality. Each individual is invited to verify its effectiveness for themselves. However, although these tools are available to all, they are only effective if put into practice. This verification is only possible when a disciple personally engages, possesses or develops the necessary capacities, and follows the proposed method strictly and faithfully. The Noble Eightfold Path. Outlined in the Fourth Noble Truth, the path is divided into 8 categories. The Noble Eightfold Path, grouped under 3 main themes: sila, ethical conduct; samadhi, mental discipline; and prajna, intuitive wisdom, as distinct from intellectual wisdom. Sila governs actions within the realm of samsara, reducing negative karma and fostering positive karma to create a conducive environment for practice, both for oneself and others. It includes 3 categories: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Samadhi allows individuals to calm the mind, understand and control its functions, and develop its powers. It includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is generally referred to in the West as meditation. Prajna is access to ultimate reality, which increases as attachment diminishes. It arises from listening, personal reflection, and applying the teachings. It includes right thought and right understanding. Thus, practice is based on discipline. It involves not only outer behavior, physical and verbal actions, but also inner thoughts, directly contributing to meditation training. Meditation, in turn, supports discipline. Both are sustained by their common motivation. A balanced and well-motivated practice is based on certain convictions, either from innate tendencies or from reflection inspired by study, and on teachings received from a qualified teacher. The different aspects of the Eightfold Path complement each other, and the practice should integrate them all simultaneously. Meditation. Meditation, or more precisely mental training, involves placing the mind in a state of balance between relaxation and attention, without restlessness or fixation. Meditation also includes various techniques that promote this balanced state. Reflective meditations, to develop right thinking, which prepares the mind for meditation. Formal meditations, mental representations that help transcend ordinary personality and cultivate the qualities of an awakened mind. Non-referential meditations, direct access to the nature of the mind and phenomena. Is a guide or teacher necessary? The necessity of a spiritual guide is a constant feature across all Buddhist schools. In spiritual matters, one should be wary of self-taught approaches, which are at risk of being ego-taught. The guide, as a representative of tradition, ensures the transmission of theoretical teachings and practical instructions, assists in difficult decisions, and serves as a reliable source of inspiration and reference. They help verify that the disciple's understanding of the teachings is correct and complete, avoiding distortions due to personal tendencies. On a deeper level, the guide conveys the experience and example of the successful application of the teachings. During genuine meditation practice, the mind undergoes unusual experiences that must be recognized and managed. The guide assists in the delicate task of discerning what is authentic and what is not. In some schools, such as Vajrayana, Zen, and others, the relationship with the teacher is the backbone of practice and key to its success. How to find a guide? It is said that when the disciple is ready, the teacher appears. However, we can facilitate this encounter by attending events like public teachings and meditation programs offered by various schools. Reading Dharma texts is also a good source of information and inspiration, which may guide us in finding a suitable teacher. To recognize an authentic teacher, the Dharma provides useful criteria, summarized as follows. Connection to an authentic tradition. Undistorted transmission of the teaching. Competence and experience in all areas of their teaching. Purely altruistic motivation. A lifestyle and behavior consistent with their teaching. Compatibility between their teaching and the abilities of their disciples. In practice, the easiest criterion to verify at the beginning is the teacher's affiliation with a lineage of transmission, ensuring that they are not self-taught. Ultimately, the proper teacher-disciple relationship should be founded on free choice, matured over a reasonable period of mutual understanding, and formalized by a request and its acceptance. The community, the Saṃgha. The Buddha's community, Saṃgha, traditionally consists of 4 groups: monks, bhikkhu, nuns, bhikkhu, male lay followers, upasaka, and female lay followers, upasika, generally referred to as lay people in the West. Monks and lay people are distinguished by their social status and their level of commitment to practice. The lay followers primarily live their faith by participating in society. They are householders, whether single or married. Their practice mainly involves listening to teachings and studying. The term upasaka etymologically means one who sits at the feet of the teacher to listen. However, they may also choose to follow a set of precepts, or trainings, in their practice. Typically, though, the term Saṃgha is most often used to refer to the renunciant communities of monks, bhikkhu, and nuns, bhikkhu, the bhikkhu Saṃgha or bhikkhu Saṃgha. These individuals fully commit to the path by following the lifestyle choice of the Buddha himself. They leave the household life for the homeless life, also called the life without hindrances, pravrajya, and vow to uphold the full set of precepts prescribed by the Buddha, as presented in the basket of discipline, Vinayapiyaka. There is an even more specific use of the term Saṃgha in the ritual known as taking refuge in the Triple Gem, a declaration of faith in which a disciple proclaims refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Saṃgha, see below, becoming a Buddhist. This refers to the Arya Saṃgha, or community of the noble ones. This community is composed of the Buddha's disciples, both men and women, who, through their practice, have experienced nirvana and are assured of attaining enlightenment, thus becoming fully awakened beings themselves. Becoming a Buddhist. One does not become a Buddhist by birth or through baptism, but through a personal commitment known as the taking of refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Saṃgha. This profession of faith marks one's entry into the community of disciples, the Saṃgha, and expresses the desire to follow the teachings, the Dharma, of the one known as the Awakened One, the Buddha. The refuge is sarana. The term sarana, often translated as refuge, should not be understood as a place to hide or escape from misfortune. Etymologically, sarana means support or source of light. The three jewels serve as the foundations of practice, offering guidance on the path and illuminating the darkness of ignorance. While this commitment is essentially personal and can be taken alone, it is typically made during a public or private ceremony, often in the presence of a teacher or experienced practitioners, and usually in front of a Buddha statue. Taking refuge is not a lifelong solemn vow. It is often reaffirmed, sometimes several times a day, and the recitation of the traditional formula is also considered a way to focus the mind and strengthen motivation in certain meditation practices. The precepts. Taking refuge holds meaning only if one subsequently applies the Buddha's teachings in practice. In addition to meditation, a Buddhist disciple typically follows a moral code, sila, expressed through precepts or vows. The number of precepts varies according to different schools and levels of commitment, typically ranging from 5 to 8, or even 10. These precepts are not commandments but rather commitments to follow inner discipline in order to progress toward awakening. This intention is reflected in the common formulation, I undertake the discipline to abstain from. Rather than the act itself, it is the underlying intention that disciples must pay attention to and work to transform. The 5 most common precepts encourage abstaining from harming living beings or taking life, taking what is not given, engaging in improper sexual conduct, speaking harmful, false, or idle words, consuming intoxicating substances that impair self-control, alcohol or drugs. Though expressed in negative terms, these precepts aim to diminish harmful tendencies fed by illusion, to allow the deeper, natural purity of the mind to emerge. Kindness and compassion. Generosity and detachment. Contentment. Love for truth and its pursuit. Mindful attention and clear awareness. Monastic commitment. All Buddhist schools recognize that lay people can attain high states of realization, or even enlightenment itself. However, regular or intensive meditation practice is seen as less compatible with the demands of worldly life. Therefore, a life beyond the world is valued, and the bhikkhu, renunciant, is often held in high regard. While this withdrawal from the world can lead to a solitary life as a hermit, most bhikkhus live in communities, with some monasteries housing thousands of monks. There are 2 ordinations, minor and major, that allow entry into such communities, distinguished by the number of precepts the initiate is invited to follow. These precepts form the monastic code of conduct, Vinaya. The first ordination, minor, includes only 10 precepts. Major ordination is usually granted after about 10 years as a novice and involves following between 227 and 258 precepts, depending on the school, and up to 366 for nuns. Every 2 weeks, at the full moon and new moon, a public recitation of these precepts takes place in the presence of the entire community, where monks are invited to confess any transgressions or remain silent if they have none. This public confession ritual, not open to lay people, is the only community ceremony all monks are required to attend. Taking refuge and observing the precepts. On this page, we present the traditional Pali text recited during the ceremonies of taking refuge and taking the precepts, according to the Theravada school ritual. Typically, the refuges in the 5 precepts, or 8, during festivals or special occasions, are taken in a pagoda, in front of a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. If that is not possible, they can be taken in front of a layperson who is well versed in the 10 precepts. If no one is available, they can be taken by oneself. This ritual involves a dialogue with set phrases, recited in Pali in the Theravada tradition, as presented here, which have been passed down and fixed over the centuries. The disciples say, Mayam Banti Tisaranina Saha Tanga Samanagatam Upasatham Yakama. We ask for the triple refuge and the 8 precepts. The ceremony begins by paying homage to the Buddha. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samasambadhasa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samasambadhasa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samasambadhasa. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Fully Awakened One. Next, refuge is taken in the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Saṃgha. Buddham Saranam Gakami. I go to the Buddha for refuge. Dhammam Saranam Gakami. I go to the Dharma for refuge. Sangham Saranam Gakami. I go to the Saṃgha for refuge. The formula is repeated 3 times, both to express veneration for the 3 jewels and to ensure that the reciter pronounces it consciously, at least once. Dutiyampi, for the 2nd time, Buddham Saranam Gakami. Dutiyampi, for the 2nd time, Dhammam Saranam Gakami. Dutiyampi, for the 2nd time, Sangham Saranam Gakami. Tatiyampi, for the 3rd time, Buddham Saranam Gakami. Tatiyampi, for the 3rd time, Dhammam Saranam Gakami. Tatiyampi, for the 3rd time, Sangham Saranam Gakami. The bhikkhu responds. Tisaranagammanam Nithitam. The taking of the triple refuge is complete. You can listen to a recording of the traditional chanting.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Saṃghaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Saṃghaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Saṃghaṃ saranvaṃ gacchāmi. Pāṇvātipātā Veramane Sikkhapatāṃ Samādhiyāmi. Atinnatāna Veramane Sikkhapatāṃ Samādhiyāmi. Kāmesu Micchācārā เวรมณีสิกขาปตังสมาธิยามิมุสาวาตาเวรมณีสิกขาปตังสมาธิยามิสุราเมรยมัจจปมาตัฏฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปตังสมาธิยามิ
The 5 precepts. The factors that determine whether a precept has been violated are defined in the commentaries. A precept is only considered broken if all the conditions listed below are met. If any one of them is missing, the precept remains intact. If one or more precepts have been violated, they should be retaken with the firm intention not to break them in the future. The disciples say, 1. Panadapada Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from killing. Not killing refers to any living being, including insects. The first precept is broken if there is a living being, pano. One knows it is alive, panasanita. There is the intention to kill, vadhasiddham. One acts to kill, upakamo. And death results, tenamaranam. 2. Adinadana Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking what is not given. The second precept is broken if there is an object belonging to someone, paraparigahitam. One knows it has an owner, paraparigahita sanita. There is the intention to steal, thayasiddham. One acts to steal, upakamo. And the object is taken, tenaharanam. 3. Kamisumikakara Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. The third precept is broken if there is the intention to engage in sexual relations, 7. Asidam. Contact occurs with the genitals, anus, or mouth, magina madgap patipadanam. Sexual relations take place, 7. Apayogo. And pleasure is experienced, sadhyanam. For Musaveda Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from false speech. Not lying also includes refraining from gossip, swearing, and speaking unnecessary things. The fourth precept is broken if there is a falsehood, adatham vathu. The intention to lie, visam vadana siddham. A lie is spoken, tajo vayamo. And the other person believes the lie, parasada datha vijananam. 5. Sura Maraya Majapamadathana Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicating drinks and drugs that lead to heedlessness. Alcohol refers to beverages such as champagne, wine, beer, whiskey, and others. Drugs include opium, marijuana, LSD, ecstasy, cocaine, and others. Cigarettes and medications containing alcohol are not included. The fifth precept is broken if the substance is alcohol, madaniyam. There is a desire to drink it, patakamayata siddham. It is consumed, tajo vayamo. And it passes through the throat, patapavesanam. The 8 precepts. The third precept is modified as follows, and 3 additional precepts are introduced. 3. Abrahmakariya Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from any sexual activity. 6. Vikalabhojana Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating after midday until dawn the next day. After midday, one may drink fruit juices or consume substances such as honey, butter, molasses, or sesame oil, considered medicinal during the Buddha's time. The 6th precept is broken if between noon and dawn the next day, vikalo. One consumes, ajo haranap payogo, food or what is considered sustenance, yavakalikam. And it is swallowed, ajo haranam. 7. Naka Gita Vadita Vasuka Dasana Malaganda Vilapana Dharana Mandana Vibhusanathana Viramani Sakapadam Samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from dancing, singing, music, and shows, as well as from the use of perfumes, cosmetics, and accessories that beautify the body. This includes refraining from dancing, singing, and playing music oneself, as well as from watching or listening to others do so. Skincare creams are permitted. The seventh precept is broken if there are entertainments, nakadini. One moves to see or hear them, dasanathaya. And one watches or listens, dasanam. For the second part, there are beautifying accessories, makeup, perfumes, jewelry equals maladinam, one is not sick, anunatakarana bhavo, and they are used, alankata. 8. Ukasayana mahasayana viramani sakapadam samadayami. I undertake the precept to refrain from using high and luxurious seats or beds. In Asian cultures, these seats are reserved for individuals of higher social status. This precept counters pride and promotes humility. The eighth precept is broken if there is a high or luxurious bed or chair, ukasayana, mahasayanam. One is aware of the furniture's size, mahasayana sanita. And one sits or lies on it, ukasayana. The disciples say, Imam athamgasamanagatam buddha panitam upasatham amanka rattim amanka divasam samadeva abhirakaitam samadayami. I undertake the firm resolve to observe these 8 upasatha precepts, laid down by the Buddha, for 1 day and 1 night. The bhikkhu responds, Apamadina rakitabani. Observe them diligently, without negligence. The disciples reply, Ama Banti. Yes, Venerable.